Again, I apologise. I've still not got a proper introduction for this, but I'm Thomas, the host or whatever you want to call me of the M.a.N podcast, Muscles and Nonsense. I have a very, very special guest, and I'm really excited to chat with Vaughan today. Some of you will have known, if you followed me on social media, Vaughan, through my own bodybuilding stuff, my photo shoots. Vaughan was the guy that coached me through those. Great guy, a long term. I don't know if we were like close friends during basketball. There was like a love-hate. We were on the same team. But Vaughan, if you could just give a little introduction, tell us a little bit about you, VW Physique, and what's just going on in your life just now.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it quite short. For those of you that don't follow me, I am a online prep coach. Used to be a one-on-one PT many moons ago. I was probably kind of when we started first working. I was towards the end of my one-to-one career. I've done, I think, about 7 bodybuilding shows myself, and I've coached close to 50 people to stage now. I still work with a little bit of lifestyle, but that's just people that have been around for a few years or a couple of years, whereas now it's solely just competitors I work with. I wouldn't say that I'm retired from the stage myself. It's more put on pause because we are it's family time now. We have a 1-year-old and we have another one on the way literally in 6 weeks. So my own bodybuilding journey is just put on pause, dad life. It's more like trying to be the biggest dad on the playground now. You know, like when you're at school and you're like, oh, my dad can batter your dad. It's kind of like, that's the goal now. It's not to be the biggest guy on the bodybuilding stage, biggest dad on the playground. So yeah, that's it from me. I guess where we're wanting to go is I've got a couple of coaches that work alongside me. They do the lifestyle stuff. I handle the prep side. And the goal for me is just to be up there with the top prep coaches in the country. And that's just something I'm endeavouring to do and have been doing for the past few years. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I think Tom was you're in the team above me, the same team, but you're in the age group above me.
Yeah.
That was it. So I'd maybe get called up and I'd sit on the bench. I mean, Tom would sit beside me and Tom would just chat shit about everyone on the court, really. The same team or other team. Vaughan, look at his shoes. Vaughan, fucking hell, have you seen that?
That was actually, we'll get it out of the way. One of the questions was from Instagram was who was better at basketball, and I'm going to answer that. It was Vaughan. You made the Scotland squad, wasn't it? Didn't you?
Yeah, but we were different. You know, I think that if you look back on the different age groups and whatnot, maybe better in local league. We'll say that. When you played for who's it?
I played for Nationals.
Nationals,
I played for there was a team. I can't remember what team they were. I can't remember what they were called. I played for a team up in Aberdeen as well, but that was way later in life.
Yeah, it was different. But I mean, I played for Scotland, but I sat on the bench for Scotland under 23s. I did play a little bit under 18s. Started. That was kind of cool, but we were like the age group that was in the middle. Like, see the one below us and above us. They went to all the big tournaments. We were kind of like the in between dudes. Yeah. So it was good fun, and I miss it. But like you, I think that basketball's had that purpose and time in my life, and I probably wouldn't go back to it as a player now because I just compare it to the good old days, and it would never be the same. Plus, I think you're the same. Like when you play at a high standard, when you start local league refs, it just pissed me off too much. My knees couldn't handle the heavy hack squats and the jumping. Like when I played basketball, I was 88 kilos soaking wet, right? So me being 130 kilos isn't really conducive to to playing.
I want to touch on that. I really do want to touch on that. I don't even think any photos that you take do you justice. It's not until I come and see you again that I realise how fucking big you are.
I'm just lanky, man.
No. Mate, your arms are like the size of my quads. Like, you genuinely are, huge. And if anybody does follow Vaughan, and they will have seen your quads, because that is, it's like a discussed topic, I suppose. They are massive. And I don't think you even there, you're just kind of nodding with a bit of smile, very humble. You are very humble, which is a great trait that you have. But you are huge.
The thing being is, though, as any bodybuilder would want is what others see you don't see in the mirror, right? So you're always wanting more, and I guess the physiques that I look up to and perhaps aspire to, I'm still quite small. right? So I might be a big dude and I might lift a fair bit, but where I would kind of want to go, although maybe that's not my goal right now, I'd consider myself like, if you were to put me on a class 1 stage, I probably wouldn't do that well because
Cut off 1 second.
I'm so bloody tall. I've just got some gaps in my physique. So yeah, I might be big, but in regards to being balanced and symmetrical for a bodybuilding stage, I got so much tissue I would need to add. But then those that can't do teach, right? So that's why I'm in the sport of coaching.
But yeah, I wanted to put that in because you're saying like I want to be the biggest dad. I think you've been one of the biggest dads on the playground for a freaking long time. But it's kind of cool. I think it's cool that you can dip in and out like the way that you do. I think it's very cool. And I'm going to touch on as well that you've said like you want to be one of the top prep coaches, and this is something that I actually want to talk about later on. But since you've brought it up, like you were one of the first people I'd seen doing what you do because I was never into bodybuilding, and I don't know if a lot of people know that. Like I was just like I call it. I stole it from Eric Helms, like a physical culturist. Like I just like lifting weights. I like sport, exercise, all that. And you were one of the first people that I ever seen talk openly about steroids. And I don't know if that's like, it's interesting because I was down at the coaching convention a couple of weeks back now, and there was the Physique Collective. Cal was there. There was a few like influencery coaches like Josh Bridgman, Joe Brightman, TM Cycles.
Yeah.
There was actually a couple of people that I know that you have coached that were there as well. It's in this topic I wanted to touch on, like prep coaches. And I think there's this weird spell, and I just want to throw the idea out there. There's this weird phase or stage that we're going through where like people aren't earning their seat at the table. It's almost like they get their level 3 and then they become a prep coach. And is that something that you've noticed a lot yourself, or?
I think there's an increase in popularity to want to be a prep coach and want to be a bodybuilding coach. Probably specifically quite locally, more than anything I've noticed. But as a whole, what you'll find is people will do one show and then call themselves a prep coach. Whereas I don't see anything wrong with that because people need to start somewhere. But I think you have to do multiple shows yourself before you, or diet to extremes, because some people maybe aren't big enough yet, before you then can earn the right to call yourself a prep coach. So like I've put, I think it's 46 people on stage, and like I still will pay guys that that are above me, that are more experienced for their knowledge and their time, because I still have a lot to learn, right? Or even this past year, I look back at some preps and say, oh, I made a mistake there, and I should have done this, should have done that. And I think that's like you have to just start. So even though there's been quite a big uptake, because let's face it, like the bodybuilding scene is growing, it's becoming more popular. The bikinis, the glitz, the glam, the Instagram photos, right? It looks cool. So with that, there'll be an increase in coaches. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone's a great coach, but we've got to start somewhere. If I think back to what I did with some of my first bikini girls, or even Chris Bain, when we look at some stuff we did, we laugh because of how shite it was, or compared to now, how different it was. So I think that, I've noticed a bit of an increase in prep coaching. I think that particularly locally has probably stemmed from just a lot of the scene through here, kind of what we do, or guess what me and Ali have been doing for a wee while. And that often, like, let's say if I coach someone to then go on stage, they'll often then kind of use what they've learned to help someone else go on stage, and so on and so forth. So it is increasing popularity, but I think it's mostly due to that increased, like bodybuilding as a whole, competing is increasing popularity as well.
I suppose if you're getting more and more clients, they're going to have bigger follow. There's going to be more and more people with more and more following. It's going to get it more exposure, so it will almost not quite normalize it, but people almost maybe see that as like, oh, well, that's what I want to do now. It's maybe a good thing for the sport, and I suppose it probably is a good thing, all that exposure.
Yeah, but it's just
like
you on you go.
On you go, sorry.
I was just going to say, like, you got to remember that this is. It's you got to think of how much effort you got to put in, right? Then to your prep, I was getting you checking every single day. You know, and I didn't make it to as many of your shows at the time because my wife was kind of giving birth or was pretty close.
Yeah.
Whereas like next year, like first 12 weeks of the season, I'm at 10 of those shows. You know, so it's time away from family. It's you know, traveling on days where, you know, shows on a Sunday, but you're traveling the Saturday, you're flying back home the Monday morning, or you're getting the last flight home on Sunday night. It's tough, right? But I fucking love it. It's great. I wouldn't do any other job in the world, because being there at those client shows, it's invaluable from a learning perspective, for networking. Like, people are like, how did you manage to work with someone from Swindon and London? I'm like, because I went to a show and I met them in the crowd or backstage. They saw me with an athlete and then they inquired. So what a lot of people will do is they'll sit in their living room on the couch and wonder why they're not getting busier. I mean, you got to go to these shows and network with people. I guess maybe my goals are different because we want to be, you know, the best in the UK. So I got to go to the shows. But yeah, I was just rambling there.
No, that's fine. I want to stay on that because I was going to move on. But like, what do you think's required then for you to progress and work your way up the prep coach ladder? Is it wins, pro cards? Like me
or just anyone in general?
Let's say
like
you.
If someone, for me to keep increasing the ladder, I just have to work with more people, and I need to do it for a bit longer. So we always talk about earning your keep as a PT, right? You need to earn your keep on the gym floor before you become an online coach, right? Similar sort of thing in the prep coach game is that you have to earn your keep, as in you gotta work with as many people at any sort of level as you possibly can. Now they will at first be, and what I specialise in is first timers, for people in their first to third season, right? Is you got to be able to take someone that's never really interested in bodybuilding before, or maybe they're just getting started, and over a couple of years get them good enough to step on stage. So I was saying one thing that we're good at is taking someone who has maybe never done it before, or they have done it once and they look shit, and turn them into a fucking show winner.
Yeah.
And it's the process that you need to be good enough, but you have to be invested that might take 2 or 3 years. You need to get that. So for me to progress up, it's a case of I need to keep producing top quality results every single week, consistently, probably for the next couple of years. Now, show wins are great, placings are always good, but I'm kind of now thinking like, okay, I want clients to win overalls. I've got some clients whose goal is they want to win their pro card, but for the most part, it's kind of what I specialise in. First season to their third, maybe they move up from juniors, novice, open classes, whatever it is, and that's kind of where I sit. You know, you got to know what you're good at, and I'm very fucking good because I'm a people person and I care, and I'm a bit OCD. Like I can't just do a shit job. I have to do the best I can, even if someone comes to me, I'm like, fuck, they're going to be so hard, or they can't die. I'm like, I need to give them 100%. So I know when we get to the end of prep or that show or whatever, and they step on stage, there was nothing else I could have done to support them to get them to where they want to be. And I think that when you do that, people recognise it. People, oh fuck yeah, he actually cares. Oh shit, he wants me checking more. He's messaging me more, or you know, he's looking at my fucking training videos every other day. Blah 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 blah. And for me to increase, I think it's a case of just time. Because the more that you do this, the higher caliber of athletes come on board, or the better your current athletes do, because they get bigger, they get more conditioned, they get better at dieting. So for me, going into next year, like there's a lot of athletes, it's their 4th season, which is quite cool. Quite a few first timers as well, but like that one show next year, I've got 10 people.
That's cool.
You know, the most I've had this year at one time is 4. So it's growing, but I think anyone out there, like if you want to progress and get bigger, it's a case of go to as many shows as you can, experience different federations, put your clients in those shows, learn from it, make mistakes. Don't be afraid to hold your hand up and say, "Oh, I was wrong," because
you've been cut off, Vaughan.
I cut off. What did you hear? What did you not hear?
Go to shows.
Go to shows, make mistakes, hold your hand up when you've maybe not made the right call, but don't be influenced by others on social media telling you what you should or shouldn't have done. Like in the early days, I worked with a guy called James Sutton. He used to be James Ossamenter, is now kind of on his own. I actually listened to him. He was my coach at the time. We did mentoring calls. Had questions for him, and then when I got a bit more knowledgeable, had a consult with another coach about something, went did it myself, went to shows, and then just kind of learnt from there.
Yeah, that's class. It's crazy. Like, we've spoke about this a couple times, and I don't know if it was when I was competing, but the standard of beginners now, like what you specialise in, is just getting ridiculous.
Yeah, man.
I'm sure
100%.
I'm sure one of my shows, it was either like a first timer or a beginner that ended up winning winning the overall.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, coming from the increased knowledge of coaches, or the collective knowledge of coaches in the industry, passing that on. And it's not a case of now just being able to just diet and turn up and do well. You have to do a few successful gaining phases, get the tissue on, train in a certain manner, because everyone's doing that now. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, and you show up at a PCA first timer show, get your ass spanked. And it is the way it is. Just now, like PCA first timer show, unless someone comes to you that's very, very fucking good, you're not putting them in that. You got to be selective with the ones that you put them in.
Yeah. Do you think there's been like a big evolution in like the online coaching industry, like you're saying there, like from like when you started, from like what you provided yourself or what you experienced from other coaches, is that standard just?
Yeah, I mean, I think I never talk bad of anyone. I think that kind of what I experienced in the early days was a coach that was very old school and very like about being a bro, and I think that was quite good for me because it learnt how, number one, how miserable it can be, but also what I would then not do for my clients at the time. But I think that the evolution has just come from increased knowledge over the course of the past few years. So like back in 2017, Cal was working at M.a.N. He's now probably the biggest coach in the UK, if not the world now. So his sort of knowledge is what I learnt from a lot over the years after my initial stint with my first coach and then James. Thereafter I learnt a lot from James. But you look at guys like Jordan Peters, had a huge impact on the whole UK bodybuilding community. To nowadays, it's more like the Joe Jeffreys or that he stems from Victor Black. Those sort of models and that education is kind of now the Physique Collective, I suppose, has just leveled everyone's game up of what to do and what not to do. And I think that there's still people doing shite ways, but there's a lot that you can do wrong and still look great on stage. So you'll never completely weed that out. But I think the evolution just stems from better coaches, better education, and more people want to do it, if I'm honest. So yeah, like what I did back then versus what I do now is there's similarities, but there's so many differences as well. But to get to this point, I had to go through the early stages.
Yeah. That leads me nicely. Mm-hmm. So if we look at your early stages and we like revert right back, and do you know what? I swear, and I know everybody will be like, oh yeah, you're just saying that. But I can remember that photo that you share all the time before you just like when you decided, right, this is it. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to take bodybuilding seriously. And it's that photo that you revert back all the time, and you're like, someone started. Like, you've got to start somewhere. I can remember seeing that and being like, I bet he does well. And I can remember seeing that, and I would love for you to like talk about your own personal journey through from that image. Do you know what? You could even go back as far as like when you used to do your kettlebell stuff. I remember those videos as well, and the evolution as well as you as a coach from that, because that will inspire people. It inspired bloody me. Honestly, that will inspire people.
Yeah, I guess like if you go back to when I first started at Pure Gym, which was December 2014, I think, or 2013, I think it was. I kind of dossed about, just become a busy PT. At the time, I was the kettlebell master, right? And that was cool. And if you provided the best classes in Pure Gym, you're the best PT. And I kind of worked a life that was revolved around serving others in the gym, 8 sessions a day, 15 hours a week to Pure. And my own training I always trained, but my nutrition was shit. And then just got to the point where I still played basketball at that time. played for the Tayside Musketeers, and that was cool. But I just honestly, mate, one day I just looked in the mirror and I was like, I look fucking shite. Now, what I meant by that was just at the time how I wanted to look, and at the time I felt big. I was kind of unhappy with how I looked, but I was mostly unhappy with what I was doing, who I was working with. But I looked in the mirror and I was kind of like, how I look warrants who I'm working with right now. And I said, the only person that's going to change this is me. And I kind of knew that I had to go through the process and the journey before I could help anyone else. So I kind of like, Ali competed in 2015 with Joe Parrish. I said to Ali, what's it like? Was it worth it? And he went, yeah, it was brilliant. I went, cool, I'll do it. So 2016, I kind of started with a coach in training for a bodybuilding show, which was Men's Physique at the time. And I knew I just had to keep my head down. I didn't know a lot, but one thing I did know is that I could train as hard as anyone else. I could be super consistent with nutrition, and I would be patient. So I did that. Competed in 2017, continued to grow as a PT and whatnot. I think as you change your physique and you post about it, people see that in your gym. So more serious clientele would come, we'd get better results. So kind of, I was able to charge more and whatnot. And then it was only after I competed and did it myself, did a couple of people then ask me, say, hey Vaughan, you've done it, could you help us? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I could, I'm maybe not the best, but 100% I fucking love to do that. But I knew in my 2017, I was like, I'm never fucking competing again. Hated that with passion. Wouldn't ever do it again. And yeah, seven shows later, that changed. So after my show, I pushed up quite a bit. 2018 came around. I think you actually came to the seminar I did, Modern Methods of Fat Loss in Pure Gym. That was one of the first photos. Because I look back and I was 117.5 kilos and I was chunky then. I was fat, right? But that was the biggest I'd ever been working with James. So that got to 2018. One of my first clients, guys, Chris Bain, put him on stage. I was kind of fortunate enough that a few people locally wanted to compete, and it came to me. So then we all went to that one show together. At the same time, in the background, like Ali was always there. Ali, the guy who works beside me, he always trained with me. We always spoke about bodybuilding every day. So it was inevitable we'd work together one day. And then I kind of did my own, eventually started coaching myself. And then 2019 came around, and it just kind of I was like, I need to do this again. Because I got bigger, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to show people that you could diet in a way and get peeled that didn't involve chicken and brown rice, chicken and broccoli 5 times a day. So I did an 8-week prep at the time. I kind of met my now wife in 2018. We did a photo shoot together, but I did an 8-week prep. And in the 8-week prep, I think we ate out 6 times. And I was pretty lean looking back at this stage. So again, in that time period, 2019, people had seen that I put people on stage in 2018. So then more people kind of came, hey Vaughan, do people on stage? And I think I put on, I think it was maybe 5 or 7 or something like that. Not even that. And business was building. But I didn't compete that year because I didn't feel big enough. Went to PCA Scotland, saw the guys and thought, fuck, I could have done that. I'm big enough, I could have done that. Yeah. But at the time, I still didn't have that drive to do it. And then, I don't know, something just changed. After watching a couple of clients compete and watching PCA Scotland as well, I was like, I'm going to fucking do this again. I'm going to do it better this time. So that's when I signed up with Cal late in 2019. Again, because I had got leaner again, I'd done the photo shoot. Guys like yourself had come to me and we'd said, hey, let's do a photo. So for me, it was kind of becoming more about helping people do shoots and shows. Like, it was progressing away from, Sandra coming in the gym because, she wants to swing a kettlebell and work out for an hour. It was moving away from that. I think at my peak, I was doing 45 one-to-one sessions, and by the time I left, it was 13. So end of 2019, left Pure Gym, went fully online because that's where I wanted to go. I think that was about November 2019. By this point, I decided I'm competing in 2020. Great, absolutely brilliant. 2020 rolls around, world fucking shuts.
Yeah.
Right, now, I was fortunate enough to actually get one show in. The one show that went ahead in the UK before the world closed. it was a 2-bro show. I won 2 categories the first time I'd won. I didn't place my first show. Buzzing, amazing. Had a bikini girl in it. She did okay. Brilliant. Ali and Clara come on board in March. World shuts. The one thing that we needed, that we helped people, was using gyms. Right? 2 new coaches come on board. Right? But I'd went fully online myself a few months later. I was established. It was, we just had to change how we did things. It was really tough. I think I lost 21 clients in 1 month. But I'm all about, I just don't accept failure, right? Sink or swim. So for me, it was a case of we just did stuff differently. Like we managed to get Ali fully online and almost up to where I was at client base wise, and Clara go from 0 to like 30 clients whilst the gyms were shut. It was really cool. But I kind of felt like I got the rug swept from underneath my feet, and because the world shut, and I had another X amount of shows planned. A lot of my clients, it was supposed to be the biggest year I'd ever had. All their shows were cancelled. So what went from going to be the biggest year was then now I had one person go on stage that year. But I'd made a decision in 2019 in a 5-year goal to be like, well, I want to be one of the best prep coaches in the UK by 2024. So I was like, well, I need to do this myself a few more times to have that stamp of authority. So I was like, right, okay, 2020 done, and I says, I'm fucking coming back next year, 2021. And I says, I want to win a British title and I want to win shows, blah, blah, blah. So during lockdown, I had a facility train from there, driving to the gym at 4:45 in the morning, I think I was breaking the law, you know what I mean, to go train at 5 a.m. But did it, lived like a bodybuilder. 2020 happened, put some people out through photo shoots, and then 2021 came along, and it was probably the biggest year for me personally as a prep coach. I competed myself and I did well, and the whole time leading up to that show was all about being the best bodybuilder I could be, but at the same time being the best coach. And it was my last opportunity, I felt, for a while, because me and my wife wanted to have a baby, got married 2020, and then I think there was 15 people on stage last year, and they all did brilliant. You were one of them. Go back to the early one of the year, the first show of the season too, was we had like 3 or 4 people in it, all winning, all doing well. I was there, I was prepping myself at the time. The show finished, then I went and did cardio. They all went out and had food, the pub and stuff. Got through my prep. 2 months later, my son was born, and it was at that point, it was kind of like a decision. Right, I'd ended prep and I was kind of felt a bit lost, didn't know where to go. I was like, I'm going to be a class 1 bodybuilder. I want to be the biggest dude I can. Then my son was born, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. I was like, I want to still bodybuild, but for me, being 135 or 140 kilos and going to those unhealthy places with drugs and stuff like that, looking at my son wasn't conducive to being a great dad and, being around for a long time. But I still had that burning passion to be one of the best coaches in the UK. So I dropped my training down to 4 days, and I was like, right, I'll do this once more, and I'll do it in 2023. Spend all of 2022 growing, continue to produce results. We've had a really successful year this year as well, and I'll go again my last time, Scotland 2023. My son was 4 months old, boom, baby number 2 in the oven. So that put those thoughts on hold. And it was kind of like it made the decision for me. I was like, right, I'm not going to compete next year because my wife's due to give birth December, January time, so really close now, within the next 6 weeks. And the newborn stage is hard. It was hard to bodybuild whilst getting a lack of sleep, but I was taking a lot of drugs, so it was kind of easy to still progress and get my food in. But which kind of takes us to now, which... That sort of fire to compete again, it's still there. There's still a small ember burning, but I'd say the flame to be one of the best coaches in the UK it's taken over completely. It's like a fucking volcano, and that kind of is my main thought process across most days of how can I be a better coach, what can I do to help my athletes win, do well, be better bodybuilders themselves, teach them from my mistakes, and next year set up to be the biggest year. Kicking off in March, and we're going to capture it all on video. We've got a videographer now, so yeah. I guess that's my journey, you could say, and it's I've just been kind of holding roughly between 127 130 kilos for the most part of this year. The heaviest was 132, but I've pulled my drugs right down. I wouldn't say I'm natty, I'm still slightly above that, but I've got no desire right now to be bigger, no desire to be a huge class 1 bodybuilder, because I know that I can hold around here, like saying this to Rona, like I value being strong, right? And what I lift, for me, I feel strong doing it, so I keep doing it. Now it's holding me at this size. So I know that if I want to jump right back in and start pushing up or pull down, I could do it like that, no problem. Yeah. But for right now, I get a lot of joy from going to shows and whatnot for clients, but also spend time with my son and, what's going to be now my second son that's on the way. Something had to give. You know, throughout the weekend, or I'm looking after them for a few hours, I can't be, it's hard to prep your meals or take them with you. You're taking your son swimming and then you go to Nando's and then you're away and you're doing shit. Like, you can't have 6 meals in your bag. You could, I'm sure, but for me, like, it dropped down my list of values and priorities, my own physique and journey. I thought, right, well, I feel big, I feel strong, so I'll just stay here. And it's the first time I've really ever felt like that since 2016. And I never thought I'd really say that. That's, well, okay, I kind of feel big, or big for me, so I'm happy just holding here, and I can kind of hold here from eating somewhat intuitively, kind of knowing, right, I can eat this X, Y, and Z. I can still shift a lot of weight compared to the average Joe or average gym goer, and that's really strong for me. I'm still probably, bar one, Chris, probably stronger than all my clients are, and I guess when it gets to the point where more of them start getting stronger than me, I'm like, fuck, I need to maybe have a little bit of a blast or something. But yeah, that's kind of, I hope that, does that cover it?
Yeah, that covers absolutely everything, mate, and there's loads of things that I want to kind of take from there and talk more about. But firstly, like, a lot of the people that will probably end up listening to this are Gen Pop, so I'm going to quickly... Drugs, when Vaughan talks about drugs, he's talking about performance-enhancing drugs. He's talking about steroids. When he's talking about natty, he means natural. So I've never taken any performance-enhancing drugs, so I have what are like natural... It's called physiological ranges, am I right? Like, your hormones within your body are normal levels. So Vaughan's come away from his steroids to get his body as close to just like kind of where mine are, where my levels are.
Well,
or are you having to take certain things?
I'm still taking them. Yeah, I'm still on them. But, right, so let's say, for example, there's a scale between 9 and 29, or let's just say 10 and 30, right? And the average male's between 10 and 30, their levels of testosterone. Now, I'm staying like 40, 45.
Oh,
so I'm staying just above. So I'm still taking steroids, right? And it's probably that's the lowest consistently I've stayed. The reason I'm not dropping all the way down is because I'll get a little bit weaker. I'll get a little bit smaller. But I can safely, I'm going to say this if you're not watching this, in brackets or parentheses, safely stay where I am. So yeah, I'm still taking them. I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, no, and that's like, it's okay. So what he's doing is he's taking a less amount to allow his body to be somewhat normal. And this was something that I learned from following you online. Is like there is like a quote unquote, in quotation marks, like there is like a healthier way to do this than what like the taboo sense that a lot of people think. Like a lot of people think you take steroids, you're guaranteed to get like acne on your back. You're guaranteed. You're going to get roid rage. You're going to get all these things. And we spoke a lot about. Like, I just asked you questions, just purely out of interest. But I guess that's probably... We can maybe come back and talk a bit more about that, or maybe people would like to know a bit more. Hey, follow Vaughan's content if you want to know more about that. His website is brilliant if you want to find anything out about this stuff, and I will link it on the YouTube and on the Spotify. But that's what he means when he's saying he's on drugs. It doesn't mean he's, like, just going wild, just partying. That's what that means, just in case people don't understand.
I suppose I'm forgetting there's maybe guys like going to the pub thinking like, when I say drugs, I'm referring to like a few lines of coke. No, I've not been at the pub for about 3 or 4 years. Right? I'm referring to performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah. When Vaughan's saying prep, that's like a dieting phase before you do a bodybuilding show to get you looking at what everybody thinks is like the massive way where you're actually like at your smallest. So when he's saying prep coach, he gets people through. There's I guess it's called like gaining phases, bulking, improvement phases. The term changes all the time. That's like you're gaining when you're trying to put on as much muscle as possible. And then there's like a spell of time before a show where you diet down to extreme levels of like as low body fat as safely, and that gives you the best look, which means makes you look the most muscular while also holding this really lean physique. And then you step on stage. So when he's saying all these things, like there's a couple things like within the bodybuilding that still do carry over, and I think that was one of the best things that I learned about from bodybuilding. People want to gain muscle. Most people want to gain muscle and lose fat to create their quote-unquote toned physique. When you do it yourself, you realize like, holy shit, you have to push a fair bit past toned to be bodybuilding ready.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and a fair bit past.
People that say they want to be toned, like what they're saying is they want to have muscle. You know, and you need muscle to get lean. But unfortunately, the majority of people probably listen to this like will have to walk about with more body fat than they're comfortable with so that one day they can walk about with less body fat. Not many people are willing to do that first phase.
Yeah. I found gaining muscle a lot harder than dieting. I think the effort you have to put in the gym.
So really much.
I did to a point. I remember I said to you, I was like, Vaughan, I can't wait to be eating loads. And then it got to the point and I was like, fuck this. I don't want to eat anymore. I never got to the gagging point. I guess that's something we could maybe talk about because people won't understand that. When we're talking about eating a lot, people think, oh yeah, I want to eat a lot. But they're just thinking of the weekend. Like at weekends, they eat a lot. When you're eating a lot every single day, your hunger hormones just go through the floor. Like you're not hungry. And then the feeling of feeling full, you wake up feeling full. I never got to gagging, and I don't know if that's something that you want to talk
about. That's something I did get, which was horrible. I'd never got it before, but it was towards the end of my push-up from 2020 to 2021 before I started prep. My wife at the time was experiencing like quite bad morning sickness, and then I would like... I'd be downstairs, I'd be eating my oats and whey, and I'd have a spoonful, and then I'd go, right? And as I would do it, she'd be upstairs, and she would instantly go, because she'd hear me do it, right? But at the time, like, I had this food in front of me, and I was like, I need to get this in. So I would wait a minute, and I'd another mouthful until it was gone. And what I'd usually do is I'd eat standing up, because I wouldn't feel like my waistband was kind of digging in, or I would like take my shorts off and walk about, so that when I was back sitting on my laptop, like it was my stomach had room, if that makes any sense, and I wasn't getting this sort of gaggy sicking feeling. It sucked at the time, but I think when I started using extraneous insulin, which is something diabetics use, right? But when as bodybuilders we use that sometimes. That didn't happen, you know. But I've still got clients this past year that had to eat 1,000 grams of carbs every day, that were using insulin, that were gagging between meals, because it's just the human body was never supposed to consume that amount of food. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or it wasn't designed, evolved, whatever you want to call it, to do that. So going to either extreme is hard to do, and it's You end up it takes all enjoyment away from food.
Yeah, I think going to both extremes has really helped my whole mindset around food. And something that I can remember you teaching me when I was speaking about like junk food and that. I can always remember you saying to me like, it's going to be there after this. Like you don't need to have it all this first weekend. Like it's going to be there for a long time. And I think it's almost like a good thing that people. I also think real hunger, is something people should experience.
Yeah,
you know, like,
people don't know what hunger is.
Yeah, I think that's something people should experience. But I guess that's something we can talk about a bit more as well. Like, I just kind of wanted to clear up some stuff for like the Gem Pop lot, but something that I'm going to go all the way back as well. Like you were saying that you needed to do what you needed to do to inspire and like lure in more clients. And I will never forget that time that I met you for a coffee, and it must have been 2018 then. just before. Yeah, it must be because I done my photo shoot in 2019, and you could like barely hold your head up, like you were like so tired, and I just kept asking questions, and like looking back now, you must have been bloody miserable because we spoke for a couple hours, and like I can remember being so regimented that I got to the point where I'd just be like, right, I need to go by, but you sat and listened to me, and I remember just like looking at you, being like, I need to experience that, like I need to know what it feels like.
Yeah, man. But the thing is, see, at the time, it was a distraction, right? So when you get that lean, what for those of you that are listening that don't know it, you start trying to fill your day with stuff to keep you busy, so you don't focus on food. So when you were like that, hey Vaughan, joining me up, and I knew it'd be a couple hours, I was like, right, I'll eat that meal then I'll go see Tom in probably a couple hours, then I'll eat that meal then. You know what I mean? And that sounds really crazy, but it's what you end up doing, is your whole day revolves around the thought of, when am I going to eat? What time is that going to be? And you're very regimented. But, you know, for me, it was a photo shoot prep. So, you know, again, I had that whole mindset of, you know, I'm trying to do this in a different way, and I'm trying to show people that, you know, it doesn't need to all be about chicken brown rice and blah, blah, blah. So that's why I was more than happy to have the chat at the time. I'm glad we did, because, you know, ended up 3 years working together, which was quite cool, and we achieved a fair bit. But unless you've done this multiple times, you will not gain the respect that you need to call yourself a prep coach, or to lure more clients in, because you don't have that stamp of authority. Yeah. There needs to be like a few times where you post a photo of you looking fucking shredded to be like, that guy gets it. Because what you were just describing there, I know what it feels like. So when you got to that point, you know, your first dieting phase, you knew that I knew what it felt like. You didn't need to describe it. You didn't need to say fuck all. I was like, I'd been there. Mm-hmm. So I could relate to that unwanted, you know, that insatiable urge to binge, the continual thought process of wanting to eat as much food as you want as in the house, or scrolling through Instagram, looking at fucking food vlogs, all that shit. Like, I get it. I've been there. But if you've never done it, you'll never be able to relate to someone that's going through it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I know there's coaches out there that have never been lean and they're prepping people, but I just feel you'll never, that, like, in the nicest way, you will never get that person 100% bang on ready.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because you've not been there. Right, how you prep them, like, for example, when you were struggling, I'm like, Tom, you need a high day. You need it.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like before you need a high day or whatever. So if you've not been through that, you wouldn't know when to do it. So then maybe someone would lose a bit more tissue than not, or a certain body part would lose some fullness, blah, blah, blah. I just think you've got to go through it multiple times, because when I did that first prep versus the sort of like fifth prep, whatever it was a bit different each time.
Yeah.
And we would just add a layer of this on, add a layer of that on, add a layer of that on. And I would learn from it. So then what I learned, I could then implement to my own clients. So then my own coaching got better because I've been through it. So then my work with the physique guys, the bodybuilders, the classic guys, all that got better, because by that point, the bikini rolls, it's kind of roughly easy to know what to do. But then with this, the assisted guys, like, I would use some tools I never used before. They would work, and I'd be like, brilliant, I'm going to use that with him. So then it kind of became better. So yeah, I can't remember what the question was, but was there a question, or?
I just think getting the experience, going through it ourselves, and just...
Yeah, sorry, but you know, I 100% think to be a successful prep coach, you must go through it yourself a few times, because like, you learn people's respect by doing that as well. Mm-hmm. Like, people are like, okay, he knows, or he's done it, because in the early stages, the thing that got me people was I did it. Mm-hmm. You know, the thing, people approached me and said, hey Vaughan, you competed last year, do you think you could prep me, because I want to compete? Yes, I fucking do. If I had never done that, I wouldn't be in this position I am today.
100%, and like, genuinely, seeing you in person, I can remember being like, go on then, let me see your abs. And I always kind of had a bit of abs when I was younger, just doing so much. And I remember you lifted your top up, and it was just like veins everywhere, and I was like, holy, that's like, just, like, that's nuts. And I want to know what that feels like. And I'll touch on as well, when Vaughan says assisted, that's also people taking performance-enhancing drugs, just in case people don't know. But I guess like they were saying as well, and the information and the knowledge that's coming out around performance-enhancing drugs now is just skyrocketing as well, isn't it? But I guess you could kind of scale the idea of prep. And I think what a lot of people do think is, like, a lot of general population people do think it is chicken, rice, and broccoli. And I don't know if you want to maybe kind of talk a bit more about what you wanted to show people and explain, because a lot of my clients, they hear me always saying fat loss occurs from a calorie deficit, and that was a big reason why I wanted to do a prep, because I wanted to just show people that, like, as long as you stay in a calorie deficit, your body fat just keeps going down. And I don't know if you want to give a couple examples of like what like you would now deem as a bad prep but potentially experienced, and then what you would say a good prep is.
A good prep is getting someone to the finish line in probably the, I'm not going to say easiest way possible, I'm going to say the least detrimental effect to their normal life as possible. Ensuring that their mental health is in a good spot, and they come out of it in just as a good spot as they went in. I would say a bad prep is not being supportive, not being attentive and taking care of your clients' needs and wants, getting them to the show not ready, or in a bad spot, bad position, or having to push them too hard to get ready, so that when they come out of it, they're in a way worse out spot, or they're a poor relationship with food, or whatever it is. So I would say, I wouldn't say there's a good prep or bad prep in regards to the foods that you eat, because let's face it, food's food, right? Calorie deficit is calorie deficit. I don't care if you're having it from a varied diet of foods you enjoy, or you're just following a chicken and brown rice thing that I was following in 2017, because it did the job. I was peeled both times I did it. The difference between the two was what got me to, like, out of the end of it, what position was I in. So the first time, really poor relationship with food because I was so restrictive. Whereas the second and third time, more of my own choice of food, of how I wanted, no restriction. So in that post-show period, relationship with food was good. I think I personally alienated myself from a lot of people in my first prep, because I thought that's what you had to do. In regards to pushing away friends, family and relationships or whatever it was. And then thereafter I wanted to prove that you didn't need to make those sacrifices or whatnot. And I think I somewhat managed to do that in 2019, but there comes a point in prep where, you can't go out to the pub and just be social, or, go to a social event, because you're just too tired. You don't have the energy to speak to someone, right? And I think that's what you sometimes realise when you go to your first prep, is it's so much harder than you once thought. So, yeah, to summarise, I think a good prep would be getting to the end point in the best way possible to make sure you come out of it as you went in. Does that make sense?
I think that's a pretty good, almost conclusion to, fat loss full stop. Anybody that's trying to do any sort of fat loss process, I think that's a great definition of a good fat loss. You come out the other end feeling alright, and you also went in without taking too much from life. I think that's actually, I really like that. I might steal that from you. But I think that's great.
That's good.
Great
it is applicable, right? Because if you, as a bodybuilder, what I do is unsustainable, right? That end goal is not something I want to or would like to maintain year round, because it sucks. Feel shit, you feel small, don't feel great, right? But if someone out there just wants to lose a couple of stone, you should be able to do that, no bother, and come at the end of it and end up probably eating more if you're eating the right sort of times and the right things or whatever, and feeling just as good, if not better, than as soon as you went in.
Yeah. I think we should also just shift onto the other side, just for anybody that is listening, about we're talking here about fat loss, and I think that sums up fat loss perfectly. You need to be in a calorie deficit. It needs to be sustainable in some way, and it shouldn't fuck up your relationship with food. And I think with regards to fat loss, I don't think there's actually many more boxes that need to be ticked. I don't think
I agree.
And I guess what I would like, because the Gen Pop people that I speak to, a lot of them will be like, I want to lean, and I want to talk about lean bulking. and we're talking about pushing food up to a point where you're gagging. And I would like you to kind of clear that up for some people as well, because people probably don't look at me and think, oh, he knows how to get big, whereas you're like, you've been up to 132 kilos, did you say?
Yeah, that's been the most that I've ever seen on the scales in the morning fasted. But there's no way two ways about it. If you want to get big, you have to walk around what I would call sloppy. You have to walk around probably with a bit more body fat than you would like. This sense of lean bulking will get you nowhere. If you're like, oh, I'm just going to add a couple of kilos in my gaining phase. Now, if you're a bikini girl, I understand if you want to take it a bit slower, that's fine. But if you're a dude and you want to get big, I don't care if you're natural or you're assisted, like, you have to be able to willingly push the boundaries. Like, when I was 132 kilos, I would get out of breath walking 200 metres, 300 metres, up a short hill. My ankles would swell. I'd get really bad lower back pumps. Not really functional for day-to-day life, right? So that's extremes. But even still, if you're just a bloke that wants to gain a little bit more mass, like, there is an interim period where you have to look like a bit like shit, and kind of like you don't really lift. You just maybe go like a big fat dude, like a bigger, little bit of a fat dude, and then all of a sudden one year, people like you'll be like, oh wow, I'm actually kind of that size and I'm fairly lean. But understand that process might take you 5 years. Yeah. It was really only probably the start of this year. So bear in mind, I've been properly bodybuilding since 2016, where I kind of looked in the mirror, or I just felt my clothes. I was like, I feel like a big dude now. You know, and that was me pushing up to 132, and I was like, okay, I feel a bit big now. You know what I mean? And that sounds ludicrous, sounds ridiculous to probably anyone listening who's never been near that. But remember, what you see in the mirror, I guess. So although I say I feel that, I still look at it and go, my arms could be way bigger, my chest could be way bigger, my glutes could be way bigger. You know what I mean? Like, there's still sort of holes I'd pick out, but it took me a long time, and especially in the early days, like that seminar I did in 2018, like, that's pretty chubby, pretty chunky. Yeah. But I wasn't like, I was probably still leaner than the average Joe. Mm-hmm. But I was carrying more body fat than I would have liked to, but every time I pulled back down, I saw the benefits of it. So every time I've went to an uncomfortable place, every time I've come back down in diet to extremes, I'm way bigger.
Yeah, yeah. I can remember when you were at your biggest and you would record stories and you're breathing. It was like you just, like it was like you were just struggling and you were just walking around this, like you're just walking around the block. I can remember hearing that and being like, woof. And I can remember as well, like when I pushed up and worried about this. Like when I pushed up, and I looked like the biggest people, if anybody that's seen mine, I pushed up to like 92, just 93 kilos. So to then add on like 40, do you know what I mean? Like 40 kilos more is just bonkers to think. Like that's the way to try and think about like how big Vaughan actually is. Like that's 40 kilos. And the next time you're in the gym, there's blue plates. Try and pick up two. Watch your back. Try and pick up two of them. That's how much bigger and heavier Vaughan was than me.
I'm also 6'4" though.
Yeah, you are fair whack taller than me, but still, like you fill your frame out, and I don't think you need to get more photos just stood next to normal people, just so people can see how big you are. But I want to kind of stick on, and I guess this is more of like a coaching question from me to try and learn a bit here. As a coach, how do you get people through these ideas of body dysmorphia? Like, if you've experienced it yourself, and you know, like, because I get clients that are like, I'm not that lean, I'm not that big, and you're like, mate, you look way better than you've ever looked. Like, how do you deal with that as a coach?
I think it's more prominent in the female side of things than it is the guys. Mainly because, I mean, I guess from my perspective, it's because I work with a lot of bikini girls, right? Mm-hmm. So society tells them that they need to, scales going down is good, scales going up is bad. You should never want to be heavy or bigger, blah, blah, blah. So for them, but I guess the rule of thumb for everyone is get them so focused on performance and get them away from how they look. So in the bodybuilding industry, to get bigger, you must get stronger across the board. So it's really getting them to set targets across the board, getting them to stop looking at themselves so much, getting them obsessing so much over the small minutiae of increasing the weight on the bar, reps at the same weight. But whenever the time comes, reminding them of how far they've come. So in a check-in, maybe 8 weeks has gone by, I'll bring up their first ever photo. Like today, I've trained a guy who trains with me on in the unit. We have a unit, and I've been coaching him since 2019. So it's come for 2023, so almost 4 years. Today in his check-in, now bear in mind he's done like 160 check-ins maybe. I brought up his first photo today and compared it to his check-in today. And was just, because we chat shop and whatnot in the unit, and he says, "Oh man, I feel bigger, but I don't, I'm not a big dude yet." And I was like, "But look at where you started. He started at 78k, and now he's 102. So it's just a gentle reminder of like, look, mate, I understand you're not happy. Like in bodybuilding, as a bodybuilder, you're never content with where you are, but you can be happy with the progress you've made. And being content keeps you striving forward. So the body dysmorphia, I know that you can't see what's in the mirror, but sometimes just outside the box, someone going, "But look how you used to look," you go, "Shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah." You know what I mean? Because I do that for me as well sometimes, right? I'm at a point now where like, I guess I don't necessarily need to do it, but I understand that people struggle, people can struggle with that. So with nearly every single client in check-ins, I'll always refer to how they looked in the past, where our plan is, where we're at in the journey, what they've done in the past, where they've kind of gotten, place a huge emphasis on the performance and kind of celebrating those wins when they hit like an all-time PB on it. Like it's a huge deal. It's a big thing, and it's like, right, okay, what's the next goal? Right, once they've ticked this off, it's like, right, well, 150 hip thruster was cool, but 180 times better. How are you going to do that? Send me a video then, right? So when they check in, although they maybe get a little bit of a wobble in how they look, they're just like, "But I'm so strong. Like they just start then seeing the value in doing it. So once in the first stage, when you kind of get them through it once, it's so much easier the second time. You don't even need to really, I'm not going to say you don't need to put as much effort, but they don't need their handheld quite as much.
Yeah.
The first time they do it, and the first time they struggle with that sort of negative body image, you've got to be the support, you've got to be there, you've got to be, "Hey, it's okay, I'm here, don't listen to society, stop listening to fucking Sheena, Sandra, whoever in the office or whatever it is."
Yeah.
And just focus on you. Stay in your lane. Stop looking at fucking, bikini fitness model that's 6 years down the line because she's been through these bulks and gaining phase before, but she was once where you were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So sometimes you got to just go through it. Trust the process, bro, which I hate that phrase, but you got to trust it, because then when you go through it once, like you did, it was easy for you to do it another 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. I guess we can use me as an example for that. Remember I had that wobble because I seen photos of Chris and I was like, "Jesus Christ, I'm not nearly as big as him. I'm not nearly as lean." And I was just like, "Holy, I don't think I'm going to do this." And I just like had a massive wobble. Yeah.
Well, how did I get you through it?
I'm trying to remember I think you just said to me like, just that, like, "Look, focus on you. Like, you've never done this before. This is your first time. Chris has competed either the year before or whatever." And I remember just being like, "Yeah, I suppose you're right." But that was the closest. I remember being like, "I'm going to make an idiot of myself."
We all think like that though. Even like when I did my first show in 2017, I remember saying to Joe Parrish, "I might pull out because I don't think I'm big enough." I ended up being the biggest guy on stage, and they put me beside the muscular men's physique guy, and I was bigger than him. So then I didn't place my category. So we all have those thoughts, man. It's then just having, like, I had a guy on a call the other night who's thinking of pulling out next year, and he's like, "I just don't know if I'm going to place." And he was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "I wouldn't tell you to go ahead with prep if I didn't think you'd place."
Yeah.
So I was like, if I didn't think you were good enough, I'd say. And I'm like, I hold no grudges. I tell people as it is. This past year, or for this year, there was 3 or 4 people that I turned down because they're like, hey mate, there's this show in 16 weeks. Can you take me on? I'm like, nah, I wouldn't prep you for that, but I'll prep you for next year if you come on board and go through a gaining phase. Some people don't like to hear that.
I bet. Yeah, I kind of want to stick on like the idea of like these worries that people have, because I think it's easy for like Gen Pop people, and we can even use me as just if you want to, I don't know, like we can like kind of slate what I done and like talk about, or we can even laugh about them. Like I think people think that all right, they're a bodybuilder, they're going to start their diet phase and they get to the end and it's going to be easy for them. It's going to be plain sailing, nice and comfortable. And I guess you've experienced it more than I have with people wobbling, with people like self-doubt, negative body image, like what you've said there. And I think that can definitely be like, I think that could help Gen Pop people looking to maybe just lose a few kilos. Like, could you give us a few examples? And I know you can't talk too much about clients, but just some stories on people having big wobbles or panics, and just so people know that it's not just them that go through that.
Yeah. So the probably the one I speak about the most was I had a client came on board 2020, tail end of 2020. Her name's Molly. She would have no problems with me saying. When she came on board, she'd competed once before and came last. So then when she came on board, she didn't think she was good enough to place. And I said, Molly, you're good enough to win. She went, what? And I was like, you will win a show next year. 100%. And the whole time she prepped, she didn't believe she placed. Now, Molly ended up walking away with, I think it was 5 wins in bikini, a second in Diva, a third in Diva, 2 pro cards, had like beat everyone in a show, won an overall, and earned her pro status. And, you know, she didn't believe she would even place the year before. So I think from a competitive standpoint, sometimes it's just about finding someone that believes in you and really sort of helping her unlock her potential that I saw in her. You know, I saw her shape, I saw like how structure, how she looked, and I was like, she's gonna look fucking good when she's peeled and she's all the way in. I was like, but I know right now she doesn't believe that. She can't see that. But I says, I need to instill this in her. I need to instill this confidence in her. So every check-in, every other check-in, it was a reminder what our aim was, what our goal was, where we were going, reminder of what our worth was, right? And then when the placings happened in the time in between shows, and the doubt between those shows came in, reminding her of what she'd just done, reminding her that she set out what we did to do, so that when the struggles or whatever come in, particularly in the post-show period, right? We were even messaging tail end of last week about, you know, she's having a bit of a tough time going away from bodybuilding at the moment, but I put a post up I think about her, and in the Instagram message I said, I hope this serves as a reminder of just what you can do. And she was like, thank you so much, Si. I didn't realise how much I needed this today. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's just, as I said, finding someone that one person that believes in you, because not everyone believes in themselves, right? They just need that someone to say, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're capable of, and then they achieve, you know, so much more than they had ever dreamed of. So that's one aspect from a competitive standpoint. In regards to the Gen Pop standpoint, it would probably be the food wobbles. And I've had people nearly every year have food wobbles with prep, that they get to a point where they binge, or they have this uncontrollable urge, and without even realising it, like they've smashed like 4 cookies like that, and it's like it was Vaughan. I didn't fucking know what I was doing. I bought them, and next thing I know they were gone. You have that, and then people can feel guilt, feel ashamed, and it's about, you know, creating an environment where someone can be open and honest, and reminding them that it's not school. You don't get a punishment exercise or detention for overeating. We chat about what happened. We chat about the triggers, what happened on that time, and we find a solution. We don't guilt. I don't guilt trip them. I don't talk down to them. I talk to them like a human being and an individual, and say, right, okay, are we at a point that, you know, how much does that set us back? What do we need to do to kind of revert that? Are we in a position where we still want to go ahead with prep? Is your mental health deteriorating? Is your food relationship with food getting worse? And often, for the most part, we could save it and have saved it, or they have that wobble and then they're fine. I've had some people that had that wobble, they have another wobble, and all of a sudden realise, look, this ain't for you. Like, prep just ain't for you. It's unfortunate to say that, like, I had 5 people this year have to pull out because it was just too hard, or for other maybe perhaps some personal reasons I can't go into. But yeah, so I guess there's a couple examples of wobbles of a lack of self-belief, or a wobble with like relationship with food, or whatever it is, because they get so food focused. Or your example of shit, man, like I've seen that other competitor and they are bigger, leaner. It's reminding them of what they've done, where they've come, and that bodybuilding is all about your journey, because the competitor that you're looking up to was once in your shoes and once had those thoughts. It's just that they're a couple of years further ahead. They've been in the oven a couple of years more than you have. I'll say they've been cooking. They've been cooking for a couple of years longer. But it's not to say that you won't get there. It's just that they are a little bit ahead of you. But I say, don't fill someone's head with smoke, right? So for yourself, like we said in 2019, we're like, look, we want to finish top 3 in Britain. Now there was a big difference on that day between first and third, right? Chris won, you came third on that day, right? But you weren't far off beating the second guy,
yeah,
right? So you were pretty damn close to being second in the UK. But Chris is just almost a pro.
Yeah,
he's
looking unbelievable.
He's a ball head away, right? He's a ball head away from turning pro. So you were comparing yourself to someone that wants to do that they want to be a professional in this game and compete for money.
Yeah.
You're coming from an amateur. So when I put it into perspective, you were kind of like, yeah. You went from saying, I'm not going to do it, to I just came third in Britain.
Yeah. I use that all the time, and I say this with clients, like, look, you need to shoot high, but you need to do something that's exciting you. And I want to go through like 3 points that you put in there. Like, I think that idea, like that self-belief that we have in people, comes either from people passing it down to us, like, look, you can do better than you think, or it comes from like doing it ourselves and being like, holy crap, I actually can do more than what I believed. And I think that as the coach is like one of the best feelings in the world. When a client at the end of their journey, they're like, I genuinely didn't believe I was going to do this, but you got me to do it. I think that's genuinely.
Like, I agree with you. It feels amazing. It's like, it's quality, and as internally you kind of go, this is fucking brilliant. I'm the man. But my response is always, it wasn't me. It was all you.
Yeah.
Because it is. Because I use the Matrix as a terminology. If you never watched the Matrix, good film. I'm not affiliated with them anyway, so I don't get any plug from putting this out. But there's always a case of he says, like, I show you the door, you're the one that walks through it. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with all clients. It's like, I just show you, okay, this is how much you need to eat, this is how you need to train. You're the one that's on the Stairmaster for an hour. You're the one that is enduring the hunger. I'm just there kind of holding your hand. At times I'm holding it a bit tighter. At times I'm not holding it quite as tight. So I just get them there. And I think that it's hard to put into words the amount of joy and fulfillment that I get when a client's like, Vaughan, I never thought I would achieve this or done this. And I'm like, yeah. I knew you would though. It's just quite awesome to be there or to be on the phone. And clients are always so thankful, and I'm always like, it's cool. But in my head, I just say, I'm like, what's next? Because if you've achieved that, what could you actually achieve thereafter?
Yeah. I do. I think, but that even like that there, like you there, like someone's done something that they didn't believe they could do. They've done it, and then you remind them, like, look, you could do more. I don't think many people actually get to experience that, and I actually have a post planned that I've never shared. That like people aren't used to being around success, and I don't mean like money success or like we're anything special or above anything, but a lot of people are around people that are like, what's the point in that? There's no point in doing that. Why would you want to do that? So I think when people get surrounded by people like us, people that love it, people that do believe and can see like anybody can do anything, and you should aim really, really high. I think that is like the best part of the job. I think being around that positive happiness, success. I don't really know how to explain that feeling, but although
Mate, it relates back, but it relates back to the basketball days, doesn't it? Because when we played basketball, we all had a collective goal of whether it was beating a certain team, you know, the Edinburgh Kings or St Mirren or, you know, whoever at Falkirk at the time. It was beating them, beating those guys at the top, or winning the league, and everything was positive. Everything was, you know, high fives. It was fucking trying to spur people on. Like Josh would have fucking Skaggy try and fight someone, and you'd be, oh, Josh, it's alright, come on, you know, like you'd sort him out, you know, and then he would get back down to level, and then he would fucking have a good game, and it was that sort of, I think, positive experiences that for me that helped shape me to be one of the coaches I am, is being around and being involved in basketball, because how, you know, you would kind of think like you maybe show up to practice and, you know, we knew we had like Kings at the weekend. You're like, fuck, we're going to get beaten. And Granty, you know, who coached me and you, who passed away earlier on this year, he'd be like, we're going to win, and you'd be like, what? And I'd still, even now, I'd still get like a little bit of goosebumps and be like, holy shit, we're going to win, you know. And then he would tell you exactly how you're going to do it, and you'd fucking believe it. Didn't matter if Saturday came, you got your ass backed. You went into that game Saturday thinking, we are fucking winning this game. And I think that's one of the traits of being a good coach is, like, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you motivate your athletes and inspire them to come out and fucking play as good as they could play? Because there's a chance that they could actually win. And there's a couple of times we upset them, you know, in the Muskie Dome or whatever it was, but it's the same thing in my game. So, like, I'm going to try and prepare someone physically in the best possible way to try and help them win. But I'm also going to fucking, like, mentally support them and hype them up. Because if I hype them up and I get them motivated and to know their worth, they'll train better. Like, they will train as a winner. See the sessions where Granty would say something like that. This session would be unbelievable on Thursday.
Yeah.
Like, people would be dunking it, you know, like, DS would be blocking people or whatever it is. Like, it would be, the energy would be immense. So imagine someone in this game, it's a competition after all, they are an athlete, you know, you're bringing out a bit of a fire in them that usually can help. Like, for me, it was always like, in the months leading up to my always competition, before a hack squat, during a set on the hack squat, I would shout, don't be beat from the legs.
Yeah.
Just to motivate me to train harder, to push for another rep, to get and it was the reason why I've got big quads now.
Yeah,
you know, but yeah, a little bit off tangent, but I think that part of being a good coach is just bringing out the best of your athletes in that way as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I almost sometimes feel a bit like, would it be sad? I don't know. I speak to Lisa about this a lot, that like there's a lot of people out there that could keep doing it but don't have any sort of support system, like nothing to say to them, like, look, you could do a bit more, you could be something else, you could, like, and I think it's sad. That actually makes me feel a bit emotional, so I don't know if I'll talk too much about that. But just keeping on John Grant, and like I bumped into Mr. Ritchie just not that long ago, and I like stopped him and I said, like, look, thank you for absolutely everything. I was like, you have, like, I'm a coach and I coach a certain way now because of you and John Grant, but I never got the chance to say it to John Grant, and I'd been planning to say it like the week before. I wanted to message him and be like, look, can I take you out for coffee or lunch? I just want to thank you for everything. And then that, like, he passed away on his bike, bless him. But no, I bumped into Keith Ritchie the other day. He's still going.
It is amazing when you think back to those experiences that mould and shape you into the man, the adult you become. I think that when you're a teenager, of course you don't appreciate that because it's just your coach, you know, that's it. But when you actually become a man and you become a father or have responsibilities and you pay mortgage and stuff like that, you kind of go, shit, they did that off their own back every weekend, and they've helped turn me into who I am today. It's something that words can't even, you know, describe how thankful you are at times. And I've had clients in the past say to me, Vaughan, I wouldn't be in this position without you, and I go, bollocks, yeah, you would. but I get why they're saying it, because I'll say the same to those two guys. That what did you get? What did you hear?
Bollocks. Bollocks.
Right. So I said, people will say, "Oh, Vaughan, I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for you," and I say, "Bollocks, yeah, you would." Right. But I understand why they're saying it, because I say the same to Cal, my old coach. I'm like, Cal, I would not be the coach I am and have the methodology I am without the influence you've had on my career. But then I think it stems way back to those early days of being in that environment. So I think if anyone who's a coach out there who used to be a basketball player, I think they're probably a pretty good coach. Call that arrogant, or just call that experience or factual. You're a passionate coach. You're good at what you do. You take anyone that was involved in a sporting regime that was team related. I bet they're a fucking good PT or a coach. 100%.
So like, this is like kind of my second last question, and then I'll let you go, because I know you're a busy man. But see, over like the evolution of like from when you started PTing to just recently, let's say, how do you think the change in what men want to strive to look like, how do you think that's changed over the years?
You know what, like, I'm so far removed from normal society, I don't think I could answer that.
No, even.
And that sounds ridiculous. Right? So I'm going to give you an answer from the world that I live in.
Right, yeah, that'll do. That works perfect.
Right? Because I live in a world that's not what many would deem normal. Like, I don't go to the pub every Friday, Saturday. I don't like watching football. Right? I don't like taking a couple of grams of coke just for fun. I'm not into that, right? I very much have lived a life a certain way that's in a manner which supports my bodybuilding and my career, which the outside world sees as very alien in nature. My wife doesn't need to worry about me on a Friday night going out because I'm in my bed at 9 because it's legs on a Saturday, right? You know what I mean? So how has that evolved? Guys want to be bigger and leaner. It's as simple as that, right? Men's physique is probably the most popular class now, but the men's physique guys are getting bigger. I think the open guys, I actually think that's on the decline because of the boundaries you have to push. Well, I wouldn't say on the decline, but you see a heck of a lot more men's physique guys, a heck of a lot more classic guys. But to get really big takes years, takes a long, long time. And the problem being is that the men's physique guys are getting bigger every single year. So where there used to be this smaller gap between the men's physique guys and the bodybuilders, well, it's still there, but because the men's physique guys are bigger, well, some guys are getting feedback that they're not big enough for men's physique, when a few years ago that they would have been taking the step up to go classic or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So the evolution is just that. I mean, it's human nature. We want bigger, better, more, leaner, whatever it is. We live for the next thing, isn't it? So the evolution from the world I live in is that guys want to be bigger. However, that's not what I would say is normal society's look wants, and that's not to be ignorant. It's just that I do live in probably a little bit of a bubble. I don't really pay much attention out with it, to be fair. So yeah, I guess you could ask Ali that, because he seemed into wearing chinos and doing his hair and wearing stupid clothes and that. So he would probably be able to answer that better than me. You know what I mean? He's just like, yeah, he's all about that game. He often walks in with outfits and I go, where the fuck did you buy that? I'm like, you got ripped off and you keep the receipt. But I wear a pair of basketball shorts and a baggy top every day. So that's my version of style.
And slashing your socks. We'll keep that in.
You know what? They're the old faithfuls, man. They've served me well for the past 7-8 years.
I love it when people say, like, oh, you've seen the way Vaughan dresses. I'm like, he doesn't care, and that's cool as fuck.
Man, like, it's easy, eh? I wake up, mate, I have 6 pair of black Jordan shorts in my cupboard that I wear. I have like three of the same T by JP tops. I got 2 Video Physique jumpers. I rotate them. I got a Video Physique hoodie. Mate, what more do you want? Because as a bodybuilder, I've never been about looking good with clothes on.
Yeah.
It's always been what's under the clothes. So for me, I don't value looking stylish. Like, I have my wedding ring on, but I don't wear a watch or jewelry or anything like that. Like, I valued feeling really strong. I value, being a great husband, being a great dad, being the best fucking coach, or one of the best coaches in the UK. And I value like hard work and being honest. And I don't want to like. It doesn't put me up or down what I wear. It doesn't make me feel stronger or feel more joy or feel sex or anything like that. I'm not about that game. The thing that makes me feel strong and feel good is shifting a fuckload of weight in the gym. So I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to dress a bit like a hobo, but no one's going to say fuck all because I'm probably 40 kilos bigger than them.
Oh, I still can't get
But in the early days,
Ali likes to wear chinos. That's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Oh, but Vaughan, that leads me. Well, there was one last question about us ever falling out, and the answer is simply no. There was a couple of times I had internal battles a bit with you when I was on a Stairmaster. That was one of the questions on Instagram. But finally, that you mentioned a few things about what you value us becoming men, and because this podcast is called Man, and I ask everybody, and I finish with this question: is what do you think it takes to make or become a good man?
A hell of a lot of time and a hell of a lot of hard lessons learned. I really don't think I properly matured till I was about 27, maybe 28 actually. Probably actually a bit older than that. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I feel like it was easy to float about feeling like I didn't have much responsibility. But ultimately, when I started being like, oh shit, I got a mortgage and I can pay that for 30 years, and I have a wife and have a family and whatnot. Of course, there's a lot of things that took me to get it, but what does it take to be a good man? Is you got to be willing to make mistakes and learn from them, fall forward, as some might say. That's a good question. I suppose no one's really ever asked me that, but
you've said good.
Yeah,
things.
I guess
Take responsibility. You looking after your family, like they're learning from mistakes.
I mean, I think that's part of being a man. But what does it take to get you there? I think it probably takes a lot of reflection. Like, see what's funny, right? Obviously, I've became a dad in the past sort of 13, 14 months. You don't realise what your mum and dad did for you until you become a parent. It's unbelievable. Like, see, going through it with the wee man every day, I'm like, my mum and dad did this for me, and I've not said thanks.
Yeah.
I'm not picked up the phone and just like, thank you for fucking like wiping my arse and holding my head up and feeding me and whatnot. Like, you just don't realise, you don't know because you're ignorant to it. I think that just for me changed my whole perspective on what life was. I'm into like personal development stuff like that. So for me, when I went and did a guy called Tony Robbins does a seminar, went and did Unleash the Power Within, like discovering what values were was quite big on me kind of deciding the direction I wanted to go in and what actually held dear to my heart and not focus so much on the noise. But that kind of helped shape me to go in the certain direction I went with myself, but also business. Also relationships as well. Like, me and Rona's second date, she went, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I said, married with 2 kids. This is our 4th year together, and we have like our second bun in the oven. So that 5-year goal that I said to her, we're smashing.
Yep.
Yeah. So I just think that you gotta be willing to take on a lot of responsibility, and I think it's just not be afraid to for things to go wrong, for things to happen that you thought were going to be forever or whatnot. What's not for you won't go by you.
Perfect. Vaughan, honestly, thank you so much I'm going to link everything for Vaughan's website, social media. Are you on TikTok? I don't have TikTok, so I don't even know how to get it.
No.
If anybody wants to read anything about anything Vaughan, it's all pretty much on there. If anybody wants to speak to him, whatever, there will be links. I've really enjoyed listening to you talk. I always do, Vaughan. I really, really do. It's been great just conversing, chatting. The passion, I freaking love it. And there's nothing better than being around someone that's passionate about something. So honestly, thank you so much for coming on, Vaughan. Yeah, it means the world.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll get you on again sometime.
Mate, no problem. Always a pleasure. And if anyone doesn't know about Tom, give him a follow. He's a pretty good guy as well, and he's pretty passionate about what he does too.
Thanks, that means a lot. Thank you. Right, we'll speak to you soon. I don't know who I've got on next, but there will be someone else coming. But thanks again, Vaughan, and I'll speak to you soon.